Welcome to Just Facts Combat. Today's video is a bit last minute, so I'll get straight to the point so you can get your final bets in before the fight card starts. In the first matchup, we have Guram Kutateladze facing off against Kaue Fernandes. So, who do I think will win and why? I believe Guram should take this one. He has the superior skill set, which should help him neutralize Fernandes. On the feet, Guram can maintain distance using his well-rounded kicking game, avoiding Muay Thai exchanges with the experienced striker Fernandes. Additionally, Guram's wrestling will be key in controlling Fernandes, especially if Fernandes tries to close the distance and turn it into a close-range battle, where he's most dangerous. Fernandes will likely look to mix things up and push Guram against the cage, utilizing his grappling and Muay Thai. However, I see Guram having the answers for this. His wrestling will stifle any close-range exchanges, and his movement and volume will help him avoid such scenarios. If Guram slows down, like we've seen in the past, the momentum could shift in Fernandes' favor. But overall, I feel Guram's style will allow him to stay in control. Final prediction: Guram Kutateladze by decision. It could be a close one, though, as both fighters can implement their game plans to win. Ultimately, it'll come down to who executes better on the night, but Guram is the pick here. This matchup presents an intriguing clash between two skilled fighters with contrasting styles and experiences. Let's break down their styles quickly to see how the fight might unfold. Nathan Fletcher boasts a strong grappling game, with 80% of his 9 wins coming via submission. His ability to control opponents on the ground and secure submissions is a key part of his style and a major factor in this fight. While his striking is decent, Fletcher can use it to disrupt Loughran's rhythm and set up his takedowns. On the other hand, Loughran, like many Irish fighters, is known for his striking and heavy hands. However, his grappling is a clear weakness, and that's why I believe Fletcher has the advantage here. I see Fletcher being able to mix things up and take Loughran to the ground. Prolonged striking exchanges could put Fletcher at risk of a knockout, but when Loughran can't keep it standing, he lacks a well-rounded game compared to Fletcher. So, my quick prediction: Nathan Fletcher wins, either by late submission or decision. Given Bannon's ability to manage range and her slightly superior all-around striking, I believe she can control the pace and avoid most of Tomar's dangerous exchanges. Tomar, while aggressive, is flat-footed and struggles with range against taller opponents, something that plays heavily in Bannon's favor. Bannon should be able to pick her apart from distance and use the fence to stay off the mat. However, Tomar's durability and relentless pressure will make this a tough fight. As a southpaw, she could pose problems if she manages to close the distance. Her high output and pace might allow her to outwork Bannon, who is fairly hittable at close range. That said, I don't think Tomar will be able to close the gap consistently enough to secure a decision, especially on enemy turf. Final pick: Shauna Bannon by decision, using her reach, disciplined striking, and solid takedown defense to outpoint Tomar over 3 rounds. This is a tough stylistic matchup for Duncan, as Pulyaev's strengths exploit his weaknesses. Pulyaev could pick Duncan apart in the mid-range, where Duncan's defense is shaky. He tends to keep his head up and hands low, relying on counters. This approach could play right into Pulyaev's game. Duncan also struggles with wrestling, particularly getting back to his feet after being taken down, which Pulyaev could capitalize on. However, Pulyaev isn't as effective on the back foot and often drops his hands while trying to maintain distance. That's where Duncan can take over. Duncan is naturally the more aggressive fighter and will likely push the pace, closing the gap to land cleaner, more impactful shots. He can also control Pulyaev against the fence, where Pulyaev struggled against Anderson. While Duncan isn't on Anderson's level in wrestling, cage control is a key part of his game. Final pick: Leroy Duncan to break Pulyaev down, control him against the fence, and either land a fight-ending shot or win by decision. A technical matchup in the heavyweight division, and one that could impact the rankings, given how easy it is to break into them with a single win. Yes, the division is that shallow. I see Mick Parkin winning with his boxing and range management. Tybura's jab could give him some trouble, but Parkin has a solid right hand down the middle. I expect a back-and-forth fight, with Tybura likely using his hands to set up takedowns. However, I think Parkin can defend them and stay at range. Tybura might try to outwork him, but at 39 years old, his athletic window is closing. Parkin has the skills to handle the pressure. Final pick: Mick Parkin by decision or TKO. This is a high-paced matchup between two aggressive strikers, so expect fireworks from the start. To keep this prediction quick, I'll focus on the key aspects: Kavanagh's kicking game and Dos Santos' clinch work, both of which will play a major role in this fight. Kavanagh could run into trouble if he slows down, but I don't see that happening. While Dos Santos is active, his heavy Muay Thai style makes him flat-footed. This is where Kavanagh can take control, using his kicks to manage range and disrupt Dos Santos in the pocket. However, Dos Santos will have opportunities inside the pocket, especially when targeting the body, something we saw Kavanagh struggle with against Ochoa. If Dos Santos can land effectively, he could slow Kavanagh down and force a pace that suits him. That said, I expect Kavanagh to maintain distance and use his kicks to set up his hands. Dos Santos, much like a smaller Charles Oliveira, keeps his chin high and fights with his hands low, mistakes Kavanagh can exploit. I see Kavanagh making him pay for this, potentially dropping him. Final pick, Kavanagh by decision. But a KO wouldn't surprise me, as Dos Santos is hittable, and Kavanagh carries respectable power. If he pressures Dos Santos, a finish is definitely on the table. This matchup presents an intriguing striker versus striker battle, with both fighters carrying knockout power. Herbert's reach advantage should allow him to control the distance and utilize his Muay Thai effectively. However, Padilla's versatility, both on the feet and the ground, makes him a dangerous threat. Ultimately, this fight will come down to who can impose their strengths and whose weaknesses get exposed. Herbert's superior technical striking and reach should allow him to pick apart Padilla at range. While Padilla is explosive early, his defensive gaps leave him vulnerable to Herbert's sharp counters. I see Herbert wearing him down and securing a TKO via punches or elbows once he finds his rhythm. That said, if Padilla turns this into a dogfight and closes the distance, he has the power to pull off an upset KO, especially since Herbert's chin has been questionable, and he's taken significantly more damage over his career. At this stage, we also have to question his durability at this level, which could favor Padilla. Still, my final pick is the battle-tested veteran, Jai Herbert. I see him cracking Padilla in the mid to late rounds and finishing the fight. My prediction, Herbert gets the stoppage in round 2. If not, I still believe he takes a decision. His game plan is easier to execute, and he knows how to fight smart to get the win. Padilla's limited experience against this level of competition, along with the challenges he'll need to overcome to score a finish or a win, might be too much for him this time. We're in for a treat with this fight. Two high-paced, technical strikers who approach the game in different ways. Wood thrives on volume, hand speed, and relentless pressure, while Charriere is a sharp counter-offensive striker who capitalizes on his opponent's aggression, using well-timed counters to close the distance and land his own shots. In the grappling department, Charriere has the edge. Wood's wrestling and grappling are solid, but not quite at his level. Given their durability, I lean towards Charriere winning a decision. If a KO happens, I see it coming from him. He's the tougher fighter with a stronger chin. Wood has shown great survival instincts when hurt, but if Charriere rocks him, I believe he can get the finish. That said, Wood's pressure and volume should keep this fight competitive. Final pick, Morgan Charriere by a close but clear decision. A KO prop on him isn't a bad look, but I'd favor the decision outcome. The outcome of this fight will likely come down to who can impose their game plan more effectively. If Duncan can keep the fight standing and use his aggressive striking, he could overwhelm Vucenic. While he might mix in some wrestling, that could be a risky strategy given Vucenic's superior grappling and Duncan's questionable takedown defense. On the other hand, if Vucenic can weather the early storm and take the fight to the ground, his submission skills could be the deciding factor. While Duncan has momentum and knockout power on his side, I see Vucenic as the more technical striker. He has the ability to exploit Duncan's defensive flaws, especially when Duncan overcommits to his striking. Though he's not the harder puncher, Vucenic is a sharp counter-striker and could catch Duncan when he leaves openings. Additionally, Vucenic's well-rounded ground game gives him a major advantage. I can see him wearing Duncan down with takedowns and control, making Duncan more vulnerable to damage on the feet. Final pick, I'm going with Jordan Vucenic to win via submission or decision, though a late TKO wouldn't surprise me, and the odds on it are too tempting to ignore. This fight could either be an exciting stand and bang war or a one-sided clinch fest. Since most women's fights don't end in a finish, I lean toward the latter. However, my pick goes against that expectation this time. There's a clear path to a finish here. Molly McCann will come out guns blazing, as always, but I see Thainara using that aggression to secure a quick and decisive finish. McCann's striking and home advantage work in her favor, but her biggest weakness is grappling, and Thainara is an elite submission artist with 5 straight finishes. If she gets this to the mat early, McCann will be in serious trouble. That said, if McCann can stuff the takedowns and keep it standing, she could outwork Thainara for a decision or even a late TKO. But skill for skill, Thainara's grappling is the biggest X factor. McCann's brawling style might play right into her hands, giving Thainara an opening to drag her to the ground. Once she takes McCann's back, the Brit's aggressive nature could lead to a crucial mistake, one that gets her caught in a submission she can't escape. Final prediction, Alexia Thainara via submission, round 1 or 2. Which version of Kevin Holland will we see this time? Will he manage to maintain range and go for the knockout, or will he fall into reaction mode, getting taken down and controlled by Gunnar Nelson? On the other hand, we have Gunnar Nelson, who hasn't fought in 2 years and is now 36 years old. How will he look after this layoff? If Nelson can't close the distance, I could see Holland controlling the range, pushing him back, and potentially landing a knockout shot. But for some reason, I just don't think that will happen. Lately, Holland seems mentally off. His recent losses have clearly affected his confidence, and his mindset has seemed negative. Some of his fans have even turned on him because of it. It feels like he's just going through the motions, treating fighting more like a way to make money than a passion. He seems to have lost that drive to win. He knows the UFC won't fire its most active fighter over a few losses. If they were going to, he would have been cut already. If this insecure version of Holland shows up, I don't think he'll do enough to stop Nelson from pressing forward, scoring takedowns, and mixing it up. Once on the ground, Nelson has the grappling skills to submit Holland, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen if Holland doesn't commit to testing Nelson's possibly rusty chin. So, my final pick is Gunnar Nelson to win via submission or decision. Carlos Ulberg has come into his own, going on an impressive run since his weakness was exposed and exploited by Kennedy Nzechukwu in 2021. He's won his last 7 fights, with only 2 going the distance. Now, he faces his toughest test yet in seasoned veteran Jan Blachowicz, a fighter fans shouldn't overlook. At 42, Jan remains incredibly tough and durable for his age and experience, making this a true 50-50 matchup. That said, I'm siding with the younger fighter in Ulberg. While his cardio issues could leave him vulnerable to a late stoppage, I believe his speed and movement will be key. He'll respect Jan's power and toughness, likely keeping him at the end of his jab and outmaneuvering him for most of the fight. However, if Jan applies enough pressure, the later rounds could be dangerous for Ulberg. A well-timed shot, similar to what Kennedy landed years ago, could end the fight. Still, I think Ulberg will be prepared for that scenario and edge out a decision win. That said, a finish from either man wouldn't surprise me. For the main event of the evening, we have Edwards taking on Brady. So who's the pick? I'm going with Sean Brady. Why? Because styles make fights. Just as the new and improved Belal Muhammad was a tough matchup for Edwards, I believe this slightly refined version of Brady presents similar challenges. Brady blends grappling, wrestling, and striking effectively. His boxing and pressure have improved, and more importantly, he's fixed the cardio issue that cost him against Belal. Before that fight, it was clear that if pushed hard enough, he'd eventually gas out. But against Burns, we saw a much better gas tank in a high-paced, 5-round fight. Edwards, on the other hand, isn't a high-output fighter. He's technical, precise, and focused on timing rather than volume. That could work against him here, as Brady will likely outwork him, throw more, land more, and mix in takedowns to solidify rounds. Leon will probably stick to his usual game, staying on the outside, picking his shots carefully, and using leg kicks to slow Brady down. But if Brady is the one pressing forward and dictating the pace, I see him being the busier fighter in a competitive fight. Final pick, Brady by decision.